The summer heat burns over Savannah, heavy with salt and sorrow. On River Street, a silver sedan lies overturned, smoke rising. A child's toy bear soaked in blood. From a wrecked black SUV, a man stumbles out, his cufflink glinting gold in the sun, the mark of power and sin. Through the haze steps Detective Jack Rourke, trench coat drenched, eyes cold as steel, his dog growling low beside him. Justice isn't coming tomorrow. It starts tonight. Before we begin, drop a comment to tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and redemption. The summer air in Savannah shimmered with heat, thick with the scent of magnolia and the low hum of cicadas hiding in the moss-draped oaks. It was early afternoon when the world changed. A sharp screech split the humid air, followed by the thunderous roar of an engine pushed too far. A black SUV, gleaming, new, powerful, came barreling down River Street, its chrome grille flashing like the jaws of a beast. Tourists scattered, screaming, and then, impact. The SUV slammed into a silver sedan at the intersection, sending it spinning through the crosswalk before flipping once, twice, and landing on its roof with a sickening crunch. Metal screamed, glass exploded across the pavement like shattered diamonds. Jack Rourke ran. Rex bolted ahead, barking, cutting through the chaos. "Call 911!" Jack shouted to a bystander as he dropped to his knees beside the overturned car. Inside, a woman hung from the seatbelt, her auburn hair soaked in blood, her skin the pale of porcelain dipped in shadow. Emily Parker, 32, a single mother, graphic designer, kind eyes forever closed now. Beside her, a small hand twitched, a child's whimper cut through the air. "Hang on, sweetheart," Jack murmured, voice steady despite the adrenaline pulsing through his veins. He reached through shattered glass, slicing his arm as he unclipped the belt holding Noah Parker, a girl no older than 8. Her hair, pale gold and tangled, was matted with dust. A stuffed bear dangled from her small fingers. Her breathing was shallow, ragged. Jack pulled her free, cradling her against his chest. "Stay with me," he whispered. "You're safe now." Rex circled, barking at the trail of rubber burned into the road. The SUV had skidded to a halt 50 yards away. Its front end was mangled, steam hissing from the hood. Jack set Noah gently down on the pavement, checked her pulse, faint but steady, then rose, eyes narrowing. The driver's door of the SUV swung open. A young man stumbled out, tall, athletic, maybe mid-20s, wearing a white linen shirt now splattered with blood. His skin was tanned, his blonde hair artfully tousled. He looked like he belonged in a yacht club, not at the scene of carnage. The smell of whiskey clung to him like perfume. Jack stepped forward. "Hey, stay where you are!" The man blinked, dazed. His blue eyes were glassy, but not from shock, from intoxication. For a heartbeat, their gazes met, and Jack saw something cold flicker there, entitlement, maybe even annoyance. Then, without a word, the man turned and bolted toward a waiting black sedan, parked half-hidden near the corner. It peeled away before Jack could even raise his badge. "Son of a... Rex!" The dog sprinted, teeth bared, but the car was gone in seconds, vanishing into the sun-glared horizon. By the time ambulances arrived, Emily Parker was already gone. Noah was rushed into the emergency vehicle, her small hand limp in Jack's. The paramedic, a stocky man named Reed, sweat trickling down his temple, shook his head grimly. "Severe internal bleeding. We'll try, but she's on the edge." Jack's jaw clenched. He looked down the street, where skid marks curved like scars across the asphalt. The faint smell of alcohol still lingered in the heat. The SUV, now silent, gleamed mockingly under the sun, a luxury vehicle worth more than most people's homes. Something about it felt wrong, too clean, too new. He reached inside the shattered window and pried loose a fragment of a license plate, the corner still readable, 4ZJ. He pocketed it just as sirens wailed louder. A uniformed officer, Maria Lopez, arrived, young but composed, her dark hair tied tightly in a braid. She surveyed the wreckage, her expression hardening. "Witnesses say the driver was drunk, possibly from one of the yacht clubs upriver," she said. "No plate registered yet, though." Jack nodded grimly. "He ran, had help. This wasn't random. Could be just some spoiled rich kid with too much money and no conscience. Lopez muttered. Jack's gaze drifted back to the ambulance pulling away. Yeah, he said quietly. And people like that don't see the dead. They see inconveniences. As the crowd dispersed, the late sun dipped lower, staining the cobblestones red. Jack stood there a long while, sweat and grief mixing on his brow. Rex sat beside him, ears perked, the dog's steady presence grounding him. He replayed the image again and again, the gleam of the SUV, the driver's blank face, the quick escape. There had been a symbol on the man's cufflink, something gold, shaped like a hawk. Jack's gut twisted. He'd seen that symbol before, in an evidence photo from an old drug trafficking case that had mysteriously vanished from the state archives. Coincidence? Or a ghost from the rot that had poisoned this city for years? Rex let out a low growl, ears pricked toward the end of the street. Jack followed his gaze. At the far corner, through the blur of sirens and sunlight, stood a man in a tailored gray suit, watching. He was tall, silver-haired, unmoving, like a statue carved from smoke. When Jack took a step forward, the man simply turned, slipped into a black car, and disappeared. Jack felt the chill crawl up his spine, despite the humid air. He reached into his pocket, fingers brushing the fragment of the plate. For Zijay, the first piece of a puzzle that already smelled of money, power, and blood. He looked at Rex, who met his eyes with quiet understanding. "We're not done here, partner," he murmured. "Not by a long shot." The sun sank behind the old brick warehouses, throwing long shadows over River Street. Somewhere across the city, a glass was raised in laughter, the same world that had just stolen a mother's life. And for the first time in months, Jack Rourke felt the familiar burn of purpose return. He didn't know it yet, but the road ahead would lead him straight into the belly of Savannah's most untouchable empire, and the truth that power was the deadliest drug of all. The sun rose heavy and red over Savannah, hanging low above the river like a wound that refused to close. Detective Jack Rourke hadn't slept. His shirt clung to his back, wrinkled from a night spent in the hospital corridors, pacing between coffee machines and trauma wards. The memory of the crash replayed endlessly behind his eyes, the metallic scream, the helpless cry, the child's limp hand in his arms. He stood now outside St. Catherine's Medical Center, watching nurses in blue scrubs move like ghosts behind the glass doors. Rex lay at his feet, tail still, eyes half open but alert, as if the dog too carried the weight of what they'd seen. Inside, the sterile air smelled of disinfectant and faint despair. Jack pushed open the door to the ICU. The rhythmic beeping of monitors filled the narrow corridor. At the far end, Noah Parker lay beneath a web of tubes and white linen, her small chest rising and falling like the tide's slow breath. A nurse adjusted the IV drip, a middle-aged woman named Marjorie Wells, short and solid, her brown hair threaded with silver. She spoke softly, her voice seasoned with years of witnessing both recovery and loss. "She's a fighter, Detective," Marjorie said, "but it's touch and go. The trauma was severe. Her mother—" She hesitated. "Didn't make it, did she?" Jack shook his head, and for a moment, the silence between them felt sacred. Outside Noah's room, Sheriff Linda Hayes was waiting. She was in her early 50s, tall and broad-shouldered, her presence commanding without effort. Her auburn hair, cut short for practicality, framed a face marked by sharp intelligence and a subtle weariness. Linda had served Savannah's law enforcement for nearly 3 decades, known for her dry humor and a reputation for never bending to pressure. Though Jack knew the job had cost her dearly. Her husband, once a Marine, had taken his own life 10 years ago after returning from overseas, and since then, Linda had poured every ounce of herself into protecting the living. She handed Jack a paper cup of coffee. "You look like hell," she said flatly. "I've been better," he replied. "Any luck on the plate fragment?" Linda exhaled, taking off her hat. "The partial 4ZJ matches a Range Rover registered to Ryan Hale, 24. He's the son of Marcus Hale. Ring a bell?" Jack's brow furrowed. "Marcus Hale," he said slowly. "Drug trafficking, money laundering, federal indictment that somehow disappeared. That Marcus Hale?" "The very one," Linda confirmed. "The old man's got fingers in everything from pharmaceuticals to construction bids. His kid's been arrested twice for DUI. Both charges dropped before they reach court." Jack sipped his coffee, bitterness coating his tongue. "So, A drunk rich kid kills a woman, puts her daughter in a coma, and walks free because daddy owns half the city. Linda's eyes hardened. Exactly, but this time, we've got witnesses. Problem is, one's already gone missing. Jack stiffened. Who? Leonard Leo Brandt, the valet from the yacht club. He parked Hale's car that night, saw him stumble out of the bar, called 911 after hearing the crash, but when we sent a unit to question him this morning, his apartment was cleaned out. Jack muttered a curse. Rex perked his ears at the sound. He didn't clean it out himself, Jack said. Hale's people got there first. Linda nodded grimly. And I don't have to tell you what happens to witnesses who inconvenience men like Marcus Hale. The two walked down the hall toward the exit, the low hum of machines fading behind them. Jack's boots echoed against the tile. We'll find him, he said, and I'll make damn sure Ryan Hale answers for what he did. Linda shot him a sidelong glance. Careful, Jack. The last detective who went after Marcus ended up retiring early, with 2 broken ribs and a burned-out house. Jack smirked humorlessly. I've got fewer things left to lose. By noon, they arrived at the Savannah Police Department, a squat brick building that smelled of paper and old coffee. Inside the briefing room, Detective Carl Benson leaned against a filing cabinet, flipping through his phone. Carl was in his mid-30s, lean and wiry, with a perpetual smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He'd grown up poor in Atlanta, clawed his way into the force, and never quite lost the chip on his shoulder. Jack respected his instincts, but distrusted his temper. Morning, Rourke, Carl drawled. Heard you turned hero again. Rescue a kid, chase a phantom rich boy. What's next, sainthood? Just doing my job, Jack replied. Carl shrugged. Sure, but maybe let the politics play out before you go kicking at the money tree. Those roots run deep. Jack ignored him and turned to Linda. We need to check the club's security feeds. Carl raised an eyebrow. Already tried. Guess what? The cameras malfunctioned last night. Power surge. Data wiped. Linda cursed under her breath. That's convenient. Carl gave a half grin. Isn't it always? As the afternoon dragged on, Jack reviewed the forensics report. The SUV's airbag contained traces of single malt scotch, expensive, imported, the kind only sold in the yacht club's private bar. He stared at the evidence photo. The Golden Hawk emblem on the cufflink. His pulse quickened. The same symbol had been found in the 2019 case against Marcus Hale, a smuggling operation shut down before it reached trial. Every lead from that case had vanished overnight. Files sealed, witnesses gone, a quiet message to anyone else who might dig. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. A woman entered, Serena Blake, early 30s, striking in a restrained way. She wore a gray pencil skirt and blazer, her black hair in a neat bun, glasses framing eyes that missed nothing. She was the assistant district attorney assigned to the case, ambitious but cautious. Her reputation was for precision, not passion. Detective Rourke, she said, extending a hand. Her tone was polite, cool, but measured. I've reviewed your preliminary report. Given the evidence, we could file for a warrant, if we had something solid linking Hale to the crash. We do, Jack said, handing her the photo. Witnesses, blood traces, the fragment, the liquor brand, it's his. Serena studied the picture. And how long before this disappears under insufficient evidence? She murmured. Jack frowned. You sound like you've been here before. Serena hesitated. Let's just say I've seen how cases against powerful men end. I want justice, detective, but justice doesn't come cheap in this city. When she left, the room felt colder. Jack looked at Linda. She's not wrong, he said, but she's underestimating how stubborn I can be. As evening fell, the golden light of Savannah turned to copper and ash. Jack drove back to the hospital, Rex's head resting on his armrest. He parked beneath the flickering street lamp, its light buzzing like an insect. The hospital windows glowed faintly in the distance. Inside, Nurse Marjorie met him with a grave expression. She's stable, she said, still critical, but holding. Relief eased the knot in his chest. He walked to Noah's room, stood by her bedside. Her hand twitched once, barely perceptible, but enough to make his heart skip. You keep fighting, kid, he whispered. You've got a whole city counting on you. As he turned to leave, Rex suddenly stiffened. The dog's ears pricked, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Jack followed his gaze toward the corridor window. Outside, Parked in the far corner of the lot, a sleek black Mercedes idled, engine humming. Behind the tinted glass, a silhouette watched, motionless. Then, slowly, the car rolled away into the dark, its taillights vanishing like twin embers fading in mist. Jack stepped closer to the window, the reflection of the hospital's fluorescent lights slicing across his face. Something in his gut twisted, the same feeling he'd had the night his partner died. This wasn't over, not even close. He reached down, resting a hand on Rex's head. "Looks like we've got company, partner." And outside, beyond the hospital walls, the city of Savannah breathed, beautiful, dangerous, and waiting for its secrets to be dragged into the light. The next morning came wrapped in a humid haze, the kind Savannah knew too well, thick, golden light draping over the river like gauze over a wound. Detective Jack Rourke sat in his car outside the precinct, staring at the morning edition of the Savannah Tribune. The headline screamed, "Tragic River Street Accident Under Investigation." The photograph showed the wreckage, but what caught Jack's eye wasn't the car. It was the blurred figure in the background, a man in a gray suit, watching from the shadows. The same man who had vanished the night before. He folded the paper slowly, jaw tightening. Whoever that was, he wasn't a stranger to this mess. Inside the precinct, the hum of phones and typewriters filled the stale air. Rex lay under Jack's desk, chin resting on his paws, ears twitching at every noise. The dog had been restless since the Mercedes sighting, growling at reflections, pacing the halls. Jack understood. Instincts like that had saved both their lives before. Sheriff Linda Hayes entered the bullpen, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a folder thick with photos. She was dressed in her usual tan uniform, sleeves rolled to her elbows, the authority in her stance softened only by the faint fatigue under her eyes. "You need to see this," she said, setting the folder on Jack's desk. Surveillance footage from a gas station 3 miles from the crash site. Timestamp, 20 minutes before the hit. Jack flipped through the stills. There was Ryan Hale, stumbling out of a black Range Rover, head tilted back, a bottle in his hand. But next to him was another man, taller, broader, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and a faded denim jacket. His face was half-turned, but even in low resolution, Jack recognized him. "That's Leo Brandt," he murmured, "the missing valet." Linda nodded grimly. "And now we know what he was doing with Hale before he vanished." Before Jack could respond, the office door swung open, and in walked Captain Robert Dwyer, the precinct's commanding officer. He was in his late 50s, a barrel-chested man with thinning blonde hair and a face carved from old stone. His eyes were ice blue and calculating, the kind of gaze that could freeze a confession mid-sentence. He'd been a career cop, strict, politically savvy, and notoriously loyal to whoever signed his paychecks. "Rourke," Dwyer barked, "I hear you've been digging where you shouldn't. You want to tell me why I got a call from the DA's office warning me to rein in my detectives?" Jack didn't flinch. "Because someone's trying to bury a case involving a dead mother and a child in a coma." Dwyer's jaw worked. "You're not the hero here. You start a war with the Hales, and you'll take this department down with you." Linda stepped forward. "Captain, with respect." "Enough," Dwyer snapped. "Drop it. That's an order." When he left, the air felt heavier. Linda muttered, "He's scared." Jack leaned back, eyes narrowed. "No, he's bought." They didn't talk after that. The silence said more than words could. That afternoon, Jack met Serena Blake, the assistant DA, at a small cafe near Forsyth Park. The cafe was quiet, filled with the scent of roasted coffee and honeysuckle from the open window. Serena arrived late, her hair undone for once, the exhaustion of sleepless nights softening her otherwise sharp demeanor. She looked around before sitting. "You shouldn't have called me here," she whispered. "I couldn't reach you at the office," Jack said. "You're being watched." Her brow furrowed. "By who?" "The same people who made your cameras malfunction." He slid a photo across the table, the image of Leo and Ryan at the gas station. "That man, Leo Brandt, he's missing. He was the last person with Ryan Hale before the crash." Serena studied the photo, fingers trembling slightly. "If that's true, then this wasn't just a drunk driving case. This was a cleanup job." Jack nodded. "And whoever's pulling the strings wants every loose end cut." Serena looked at him, her usual composure cracking. "Do you realize what you're suggesting? That Marcus Hale ordered his own son's cover-up with the police in his pocket?" "I'm not suggesting," Jack said quietly. "I'm proving." At that moment, a waiter came by with a refill. Tyrell, a college student working part-time, tall and soft-spoken, his uniform shirt too large for his lanky frame. He smiled politely, oblivious to the tension at the table. When he walked away, Serena's eyes flicked toward the window. Across the street, a black sedan idled. "You weren't exaggerating," she whispered. Jack stood, tossing cash onto the table. "Come on, we're done here." That evening, back at the precinct, Jack found Carl Benson leaning against his desk again, arms folded. "You know, Rourke," Carl said, "rumor is you're about to make some powerful enemies." "Wouldn't be the first time." Carl's grin faltered. "Just be careful who you trust. People disappear when they start poking the wrong nest." Jack studied him. Something in Carl's tone, half warning, half pity, didn't sit right. "Thanks for the concern," he said flatly. After Carl left, Linda appeared in the doorway, holding a brown evidence envelope. "Found something in Leo Brandt's rental records," she said. Inside was a key card stamped with the logo of South Pier Storage, a set of warehouses along the riverfront, abandoned for years after a fire. By midnight, the sky was a curtain of smoke-gray clouds, heavy with the promise of rain. Jack parked near the rusted gates of South Pier. The air smelled of salt and metal. Rex leapt from the car, nose to the ground, tail stiff. "Let's find our ghost," Jack murmured. Inside the warehouse, beams of moonlight filtered through holes in the roof. The floor was littered with tire tracks and cigarette butts. Rex's growl deepened. They followed it to a door padlocked but recently forced open. Jack pushed through and froze. The room reeked of gasoline. In the center lay the charred remains of a man, his body blackened beyond recognition. On the wall behind him, words had been scrawled in soot. "Silence costs less." Linda's voice crackled through Jack's earpiece. "Rourke, what do you see?" He stared at the corpse, bile rising in his throat. "I found Leo Brandt." The rain began to fall, hard and sudden, hissing against the roof like whispered curses. Jack pulled out his phone, snapped photos, and crouched beside the body. Amid the ash, something glinted. A gold cufflink, shaped like a hawk. His pulse spiked. It was the same emblem Ryan Hale had worn. "Linda," he said, "this wasn't just a warning. They're cleaning house." Rex barked sharply, turning toward the shadows. Footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. A man emerged from the darkness wearing a black raincoat and gloves, his face hidden under a hood. "Detective Rourke," he said, voice smooth, practiced. "You should have stayed out of this." Jack reached for his gun, but the man raised a small detonator. "I wouldn't," he said. "You're standing on a grave soaked in gasoline." A deafening blast followed. Jack threw himself behind a metal beam as fire erupted across the room. The shockwave knocked him flat. Flames climbed the walls, devouring the warehouse in seconds. Through the smoke, the hooded man slipped out the back exit, vanishing into the storm. Jack staggered up, coughing, pulling Rex close as they bolted toward the door. They barely made it outside before the roof caved in behind them, sparks exploding into the rain. He fell to his knees, chest heaving, staring at the inferno that had once held the truth. When Linda's patrol cars arrived minutes later, sirens slicing through the storm, Jack was soaked, covered in ash, the hawk-shaped cufflink clutched in his hand. "This was no accident," he said hoarsely. "They're erasing every trace." Linda's eyes widened. "Jack! What about Leo?" Jack looked toward the flames. "Leo's gone, but whoever set this fire just told us one thing." "What's that?" Linda asked. "That they're scared." As the fire burned, a black SUV rolled silently past the docks. Inside, Marcus Hale, silver hair slicked back, stared through the rain-streaked window. His reflection blurred against the flames. He smiled faintly and said to the driver, "Tell my son it's time to leave town." The river was gray at dawn, rippling with the pale shimmer of fog that rolled in from the sea. Detective Jack Rourke stood on the pier, collar turned up against the cold wind, the water beneath him still smelling faintly of gasoline from the explosion 2 nights before. His reflection trembled on the surface, half shadow, half ghost. Rex, standing beside him, sniffed the air, and gave a low whine, uneasy. The dog's fur had dried in uneven tufts, his left ear nicked from the glass that had shattered in the penthouse. He nudged Jack's hand as if to remind him that dawn meant something like hope. Behind them, the city of Savannah was waking. The skyline glowed gold against the mist, the wounds of the storm slowly fading. But beneath that calm veneer, the real war had just begun. Sheriff Linda Hayes approached from the dock, her coat heavy with dew, a thermos in hand. "Coffee, strong enough to burn the guilt out of a priest," she said dryly, passing it over. Jack smiled faintly, took a sip, and grimaced. "That's motor oil." "It's the only thing keeping me standing," she replied, then turned serious. "We recovered part of Hale's helicopter wreckage 50 miles out near Tybee Sound. The pilot's body was still strapped in. Ryan Hale wasn't with him." Jack frowned. "So he jumped?" Linda nodded. "Or someone pushed him." Before Jack could respond, his phone buzzed. It was Serena Blake, the assistant DA. Her voice was tight, clipped. "Rourke, we've got a situation. A package was delivered to my office this morning. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. It's encrypted, but the file title reads Inheritance. It's signed with Marcus Hale's initials." Jack met Linda's gaze. "He's alive." They reconvened at City Hall, Serena pacing the conference room like a storm contained in heels and gray silk. Her usually composed demeanor had cracked. Her bun was loose, strands of hair clinging to her face. "Whatever's on that drive, it's meant for you," she told Jack. "Hale wanted this to reach us." "Or he wanted us to open it," Linda said cautiously. Eddie Malone was called in again, carrying his laptop and a box of wires that looked older than civilization. He grinned nervously when he saw Jack. "You trying to give me ulcers, man? Every time you call, something explodes." Jack smirked. "Not today, I hope." Eddie plugged in the drive, typing quickly. Lines of code cascaded across the screen until a video flickered to life. The image was grainy, filmed in low light. Marcus Hale appeared, soaked, his silver hair plastered to his skull, face gaunt, but eyes sharp as ever. He was alive, hiding somewhere. "Detective Rourke," his voice filled the room, calm, deliberate. "If you're seeing this, then you know I've lost everything, my empire, my son, my city. But you haven't won. Savannah was built on corruption long before my name ever mattered. You think burning one, man will cleanse it? You're wrong. The roots go deeper. The men who bankrolled me sit in your own city council. They are the real infection. Find them, and you'll find why I did what I did." The video cut abruptly to static, followed by a still frame, an image of a document marked City Infrastructure Fund, Confidential Transfer Log. Eddie squinted. "He's pointing to something in the city accounts. Embezzlement, maybe. These records are restricted to government finance." Linda crossed her arms. "And the man in charge of that department is—" Jack finished for her. "Councilman Gregory Vance." Vance was in his late 50s, tall and lean, with immaculate suits and a reputation as the city's model reformer. But Jack had seen him before, at Hale's charity galas, shaking hands with devils in tuxedos. They couldn't arrest him on a hunch. They needed proof. By evening, the three of them, Jack, Linda, and Eddie, headed to the Savannah City Archives, an imposing building of red brick and shadowed columns. Inside, marble floors echoed beneath their boots. The security guard, Henry Lyle, an elderly man with kind eyes and a limp from an old Navy injury, greeted them. "Evening, Sheriff," he said, glancing at Rex with amusement. "You catching crooks or ghosts tonight?" "Hopefully both," Linda replied. They descended to the basement, where the air was cooler, thicker with dust. File cabinets stretched into darkness. Eddie hacked the main terminal, muttering curses under his breath. "They've got firewalls thicker than the Pentagon," he grunted. "Somebody really doesn't want this opened." Finally, the system unlocked. Numbers and names scrolled down the monitor. Accounts, transfers, offshore codes. Jack froze. Among them were names he recognized. Judges, police officials, and even Captain Dwyer. "They're all on Hale's payroll," he whispered. "This isn't just one empire, it's the whole damn city." A noise echoed from the stairwell. Soft footsteps. Rex lifted his head, growling low. Jack turned off the monitor. "We're not alone." From the shadows stepped Ryan Hale, disheveled, pale, eyes wild. His left hand was bandaged, blood seeping through the gauze. "You don't understand," he gasped. "He's still controlling everything. My father, he doesn't die, he multiplies." Jack raised his gun. "Drop it, Ryan." Ryan shook his head, voice trembling. "He sent me to finish this, to destroy what's left. The files, the proof. He says if Savannah burns, it burns clean." He pulled a small detonator from his jacket. "Ryan, don't!" Serena shouted, stepping forward from behind the desk. She'd followed them quietly, determined not to stay on the sidelines. Her voice softened. "You're not him. Don't carry his sins." For a moment, Ryan faltered. The red light on the detonator blinked, steady as a heartbeat. His face crumpled, torn between fear and defiance. "You don't get it. He's everywhere." Rex lunged, knocking the device from Ryan's hand. Jack dove, catching it mid-air, pressing the safety switch just in time. It clattered to the floor harmlessly. Ryan fell to his knees, sobbing. "I wanted to stop him," he whispered, "but he's not dead. He's watching us even now." As if summoned by the words, the overhead lights flickered. The main terminal flashed to life again. Marcus Hale's face filled the screen once more. "You see," his voice echoed, "you can't bury me, detective, because I am the city. I am the rot you refuse to name." Then the screen went black. The room fell silent except for the hum of electricity and Ryan's ragged breathing. Jack looked at Linda. "We have enough. Every name, every account. It's all here. We end it tonight." By midnight, federal agents swarmed City Hall. Files, servers, and private safes were seized. Headlines exploded the next morning. "Major corruption ring exposed. Councilmen, judges, and police under investigation." Savannah, for the first time in decades, trembled on the edge of rebirth. Days later, the air was clean again. Jack visited St. Catherine's Medical Center, where Noah Parker had finally awakened. The little girl sat by the window, her hair pale as sunlight, eyes curious but calm. When she saw Jack, she smiled faintly. "You caught the bad men?" Jack knelt beside her bed. "Most of them," he said softly. "Some things take time." She reached out, resting her small hand on Rex's head. "He's my hero," she said. Jack chuckled. "Mine too." As he left, the sun broke through the clouds, flooding the hallway with light. Outside, reporters shouted his name, but he ignored them. He wasn't thinking about headlines, only the quiet truth that justice, however late, had found its way back. On the river that night, Jack stood once more on the pier. Savannah glimmered like new gold across the water. But far downstream, beneath the drawbridge's shadow, a man in a soaked black coat watched the lights in silence. His hair was silver, his eyes cold. Marcus Hale was alive, a faint smile cutting through his pale face as he whispered into the wind, "You can't clean a city built on sin." Then he vanished into the fog. In the end, Savannah was washed clean, not just by rain, but by grace. Justice didn't arrive with thunder or fire. It came quietly, through human hearts that refused to stop believing. In a city built on corruption and silence, Jack Rourke, Rex, and those who stood beside them became proof that even in the darkest hour, God still works through ordinary hands, through courage, kindness, and the stubborn hope that refuses to die. Maybe that's the miracle we often overlook, not the parting of seas, but the steady strength to keep doing what's right, one small act at a time. And maybe, just maybe, the Lord doesn't send lightning to fix what's broken. He sends people, like you and me, to carry the light where it's needed most. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it, leave a comment, and subscribe for more tales of hope, faith, and redemption. May God's grace protect you, guide your path, and remind you that miracles aren't gone from this world. They're just waiting for us to notice them.